Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So continuing with teachings on modesty. And I'm going to read a sutta, but then follow it with some teachings from Parpayutto in his book Buddha Dhamma, teachings on happiness, which isn't quite on the subject of modesty, but is teachings on happiness that I found useful. So I think interspersing these things in there might be helpful. So this is Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 113, the Saparisa Sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the bhikkhus thus, "Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir," they replied. The Blessed One said this, "Bhikkhus, I shall teach you the character of a true man and the character of an untrue man. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this, and this true man is Saparisa, which this is a older Bhikkhu Bodhi did the Majjhima Nikaya earlier on. Now his speech is more politically correct, where he says true person or untrue person, as Ajahn Naniko read in his more newly translated Anguttara Nikaya. But just for ease of reading, I'm just going to translate it as true man here in his older translation. The Blessed One said this, "Bhikkhus, what is the character of an untrue man? Here an untrue man who has gone forth from an aristocratic family considers thus, I have gone forth from an aristocratic family, but these other bhikkhus have not gone forth from aristocratic families. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his aristocratic family. This is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus, it is not because of one's aristocratic family that states of greed, hatred, or delusion are destroyed. Even though someone may not have gone forth from an aristocratic family, yet if he has entered upon the way that accords with the Dhamma, entered upon the proper way, and conducts himself according to the Dhamma, he should be honored for that. He should be praised for that. So, putting the practice of the way first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his aristocratic family. This is the character of a true man. Moreover, an untrue man who has gone forth from a great family, from a wealthy family, or from an influential family considers thus, I have gone forth from an influential family, but these other bhikkhus have not gone forth from influential families. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his influential family. This too is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus, it is not because of one's influential family that states of greed, hatred, or delusion are destroyed. Even though someone may not have gone forth from an influential family, yet if he has entered upon the way that accords with the Dhamma, entered upon the proper way, and conducts himself according to the Dhamma, he should be honored for that. He should be praised for that. So, putting the practice of the way first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his influential family. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, an untrue man who is well known and famous considers thus, I am well known and famous, but these other bhikkhus are unknown and of no account. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his renown. This too is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus, it is not because of one's renown that states of greed, hatred, or delusion are destroyed. Even though someone may not be well known and famous, yet if he has entered upon the way that accords with the Dhamma, entered upon the proper way, and conducts himself according to the Dhamma, he should be honored for that. He should be praised for that. So, putting the practice of the way first, He neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his renown. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, an untrue man who gains robes, alms food, resting places, and requisites of medicine considers thus: I gain robes, alms food, resting places, and requisites of medicine, but these other bhikkhus do not gain these things. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of gain. This too is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus: it is not because of gain that states of greed, hatred, or delusion are destroyed. Even though someone has no gain, yet if he has entered upon the way that accords with the Dhamma, entered upon the proper way, and conducts himself according to the Dhamma, he should be honored for that, he should be praised for that. So, putting the practice of the way first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of gain. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, an untrue man who is learned, who is expert in the discipline, who is a preacher of the Dhamma, who is a forest dweller, who is a refuse rag wearer, an alms food eater, a tree root dweller, a charnel ground dweller, an open air dweller, a continual sitter, and any bed user, a one-session eater considers thus: I am a one-session eater, but these other bhikkhus are not one-session eaters. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his being a one-session eater. This too is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus: it is not because of being a one-session eater that states of greed, hatred, and delusion are destroyed. So he's going through all the dhutangas. One is praising oneself and disparaging others for following any one of these dhutanga practices. Even though someone may not be a one-session eater, yet if he has entered upon the way that accords with the Dhamma, entered upon the proper way, and conducts himself according to the Dhamma, he should be honored for that, he should be praised for that. So putting the practice of the way first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his being a one-session eater. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. He considers thus: I have gained the attainment of the first jhana, but these other bhikkhus have not gained the attainment of the first jhana. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his attainment of the first jhana. This too is the character of an untrue man. But a true man considers thus: non-identification, even with the attainment of the first jhana, has been declared by the Blessed One, for in whatever way they conceive, the fact is ever other than that. So, putting non-identification first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his attainment of the first jhana. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the second jhana. With the fading away as well of rapture, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, he enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana. Moreover, with the complete surmounting of perceptions of form, with the disappearance of perceptions of sensory impact, with non-attention to perceptions of diversity, aware that space is infinite, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the base of infinite space. Moreover, by completely surmounting the base of infinite space, aware that consciousness is infinite, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the base of infinite consciousness. Moreover, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the base of nothingness. Moreover, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, an untrue man enters upon and abides in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. He considers thus: I have gained the attainment of the base of neither perception nor non-perception, but these other bhikkhus have not gained the attainment of the base of neither perception nor non-perception. So he lauds himself and disparages others because of his attainment of the base of neither perception nor non-perception. This too is the character of an untrue man. So this is pretty subtle. This base of neither perception nor non-perception is also known as the pinnacle of samsara, and is an incredibly high and subtle attainment. But a true man considers thus: non-identification, even with the attainment of the base of neither perception nor non-perception, has been declared by the Blessed One, for in whatever way they conceive, the fact is ever other than that. So putting non-identification first, he neither lauds himself nor disparages others because of his attainment of the base of neither perception nor non-perception. This too is the character of a true man. Moreover, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, a true man enters upon and abides in the cessation of perception and feeling, and his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This bhikkhu does not conceive anything. He does not conceive in regard to anything. He does not conceive in any way. That is what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So I liked that sutta just because of always coming back to the fundamental of the unworldly state of not praising oneself and disparaging others, even because of really high meditative attainments. And this is a reading from Buddha Dhamma. It's chapter 18, The Path Factors of Concentration, page 1411. This section is titled, The Natural Development of Concentration. This heading refers to a spiritual practice conforming to a natural process within which concentration arises automatically, or without requiring a deliberate intention, a process which the Buddha spoke about on many occasions. The essence of this process is for a person to perform virtuous deeds which are a source of joy. Joy is then followed respectively by delight, relaxation, happiness, and finally concentration. This is illustrated in the following way, and here's some Pali terms. Pamoja, joy, leading to piti, which is delight or satisfaction, leading to passaddhi, which is physical ease and relaxation, leading to sukha, which is mental ease and happiness, and leading on to samadhi, concentration. Generally speaking, this process is only possible when virtuous conduct acts as a support. Virtuous conduct here refers to refraining from oppressing or violating others, actions which cause distress, mistrust, fear of retribution, guilt, and remorse. Instead, a person acts in an upright manner, which leads to a sense of inner contentment and self-confidence. There are many actions which give rise to joy and delight. For example, one may recall one's own virtuous acts and meritorious deeds. One may recollect the Triple Gem and other excellent qualities, or one may reflect on a particular teaching and gain insight into it. The basis, or the most clearly related factor for the arising of concentration, is happiness, as is confirmed by the Buddha's standard teaching. For one who is happy, the mind becomes concentrated. Sukhino chittang samadhiyati. The passage in full is as follows. When he understands the essence and the principle of the Dhamma, gladness arises. When he is gladdened, delight arises. When the mind is delighted, the body becomes calm. One calm in body feels happy. For one who is happy, the mind becomes concentrated. The natural development of concentration mentioned here is in fact the essence of all forms of concentrative meditation up to the stage of attaining jhana. Up to the stage of attaining jhana. And now I'm going to back up to earlier in the book, and where he talks more about happiness. And this is about how desire needs to be cultivated in order to develop happiness. And this is chapter 11, which the name of the chapter is Happiness, and it's page 824. Or sorry, 825. Just start reading about halfway down the page. Many people, especially Buddhists, encounter the word desire and immediately label it as bad or incorrect. They then go on to encourage others to not have desires, which they see as dangerous and potentially destructive, both for an individual's spiritual development and for society. Others go to an opposite extreme and promote desire, encouraging people to acquire things and increase wealth. Some even advocate greed, urging people to be rich, famous, and influential. They claim this hunger for things is required for society to develop. This is not true development, however. Rather, it leads to eventually conflict and destruction. The best people can achieve by such efforts is to reach an unstable form of development, both politically and economically. These people represent two extremes, but they share the common factor of a lack of understanding. They do not understand the nature of desire and do not deal with it correctly. Therefore, it is essential to understand and distinguish between different kinds of desire. This will lead to greater clarity. Having provided a rough outline of the distinction between the two kinds of desire, let us now focus on some of their essential characteristics. 1. Craving, tanha. Desire catering to selfish needs, i.e., a wish to acquire something for oneself, the search for self-gratification, the wish to personally consume, obtain, become, or avoid something. 2. Wholesome enthusiasm, chanda. Desire focusing on the inherent nature of the object involved, a search for the wellness, virtue, and completeness of an object. Take, for instance, the natural surroundings of a monastery. People enter the forested area of a monastery and see squirrels bounding in the trees. Some people will rejoice in the charm and nimbleness of the squirrels. They may think, "What a delightful sight! May these squirrels be healthy and strong. May this beautiful and refreshing place prosper." In this way, they desire for the completeness of the thing in question. They possess a wholesome desire, chanda. Other people will see the same squirrels and think, "These squirrels are plump and meaty. If only I could catch one and cook it for my evening soup." Here the desire is for self-gratification. It is an unwholesome desire based on craving, tanha. Another example is the consideration by certain students who have finished their secondary education to go on and study medicine. Some students will want to be doctors in order to get rich and gain honor and prestige. This is a selfish, unwholesome form of desire. Other students wish to study medicine because they want others to be free from illness, to be healthy, to be free from affliction, to live safely and at ease. This desire aims for the completeness of the conditions at hand, in this case, the health of the nation's people, which is the express purpose of the medical profession. This is a wholesome desire. When people's needs and desires are fulfilled, they experience happiness. For this reason, happiness among people varies according to their desires. When those who wish for the squirrels to be well and healthy see them bounding through the trees, their desire is fulfilled, and they will immediately experience happiness. Those who wish to eat the squirrels for the sake of their palates must hunt the squirrels, kill them, and cook them in order to prepare them as a meal. Only then will their desire be satisfied and will they experience happiness. From a wider perspective, those people with wholesome desire, chanda, like to create the causes for prosperity, while those full of craving simply wait to enjoy the fruits of prosperity. Those with wholesome desire are creators. Those with craving are consumers. The former experience happiness in creating, the latter experience happiness in consuming. In a society with people of such different inclinations, it is too much to expect that the current of craving will dry up on its own, or that the way of wholesome desire will prevail. The best one can do is to balance these two forces, to prevent the floods of craving from washing people into the abyss, and to support the fulfillment of wholesome desire. As long as there are people dedicated to fulfilling wholesome desire, human society can progress. Moreover, supporting the spiritual development of people simultaneously increases the happiness for all. And I'll leave it there. And I read that just to dovetail with the part on concentration that occurs later in the book, how the development of happiness causes a natural development of concentration that happens. That's also known as the proximal cause dependent origination, which is dependent origination. There's one formula of dependent origination, starting with ignorance leading to suffering, but then suffering leading to faith, faith leading to virtue, joy, and so on, into concentration and onto liberation. So that's developing chanda, wholesome desire, and then leading on to concentration. Any comments, questions?
I'm just thinking about how even if one isn't like sort of going around criticizing others for not, for various things, like the dhutangas, for example, like it can still be very insidious in one's own mind if one develops the attitudes of like basically putting oneself up and disparaging others. And you don't have to say anything, but it can just be a flavor in your mind, like sitting, whatever, up all night on an optional Wampa and sort of just thinking to yourself over and over again, well, I'm a real practitioner, where is everybody? Or something like that, I just found it very insidious in my own practice, that underlying attitude of comparing oneself to others, and how destructive. In fact, and that too, for me, it dovetails right along with that sense of chanda and tanha. Like, it's even if you are, you're practicing for hours in the middle of the night, or you're dwelling out in the forest in this beautiful scenery, like you're basically sabotaging yourself, and you're destroying the own benefits of those practices by thinking, bad about other people, or by comparing yourself. You're basically screwing yourself.
Yeah, and you're suffering. You're suffering also by when it is very insidious, because, I think everybody, I can speak for myself that I've experienced this many times where I've taken on a certain practice and thought kind of you feel puffed up about it. And we were talking yesterday about like feeling big, and that's why Luang Por Chah put so much emphasis on humility. And
that secret wish of, even if you're not disparaging others, it's sort of like, maybe somebody will notice, maybe they'll see me, see up there. Not that those dhutangas are not things to undertake, they can be really good to offset strong tendencies of the mind, but it's so easy to get that other factor in.
Early on, I remember having this desire in a very blatant way, thinking, because I didn't know why my friends didn't, have faith in that I left behind in lay life, like why they couldn't see how great Buddhism was or how great this was. And then I had the fantasy that if I actually cultivate the psychic power of how to fly, and I was able to fly in front of them, then they would have faith, then they would know. So,
So what happened?
I haven't learned how to fly yet. Still got to work on that one. in the Saparisa Sutta, also, that's one of the few places in the suttas where the Buddha actually lists the dhutangas as an actual list. And he doesn't list all 13 there. There's only maybe 9 or 10 of them, but I think that's one of the most complete lists in the Nikayas of the dhutangas. Otherwise, they always come up at maybe one at a time, or the Buddha might talk about rag robe wearing in one place and being an alms food eater in another place, but rarely do they come up as a list like that.
It's funny with the dhutangas, I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say that it's universally the wrong people that take up the dhutangas, but there's an interesting phenomenon around that. Like, yeah, people who should absolutely not be doing the dhutangas, taking on the dhutangas, and then getting more entrenched in ditthi, tightness, unskillful ways of being, etc. It's so interesting with these various practices that when you line it up with the right person, with the right character, with the right imbalance, how magical it is that when it works. But yeah, just a funny thing around the dhutangas.
That's another reason I like that sutta, is because it comes back to like, the true man reflects thus: it is not because of being a one-sitting eater that one is liberated. It's like, you can get into that point, like, well, if I take on the dhutangas, that'll be a direct cause for liberation. But it's only, even still, that's still not the case. It's done as a help or as an assistant, but it's not the direct cause.
There was a novice at Nanachat a few years back who, like, first Vasa just took on that, like, Tokpat, Nessa chick almost the whole time, everything, and then at the end of the Vasa he just wrote for Diablo 3, the video game. Imagine Ken's like, really? Diablo 3? That's it? So, yeah.
He was so miserable at the monastery.
Probably. I found one interesting thing there to be the part about chanda being associated with producing instead of consuming, and it's certainly, like, I found that to be really true. And you know, it feels like as monks a lot, you can kind of get into the mode of consuming, you know, not just food or whatever, but, you know, listening to Dhamma talks, and, like, it seems so essential to find, you know, for me personally, to find some outlet of creativity and generativity and that sense of production, and it feels very wholesome, so, like, when it's in the right time, in the right place. So that association with chanda as something producing, like, very true to me.
Yeah, and then chanda also leading to an immediate gratification of happiness. So, like the example of the squirrels, you know, may these squirrels flourish, and they're already flourishing. So it's like mudita, like you're having. So then your desire is immediately fulfilled. Whereas, like, tanha, you have to go through all the work of killing them and cooking them, and only then do you get the brief fleeting desire fulfilled of eating them.
I wonder if you could draw a distinction between creativity and proliferation. I feel like with lay life, there's often this mill of social media producing content, expanding your ego. What's the distinction?
One thought that was just going through my mind when you said that was, yeah, it depends on motivation and where it's coming from. And it's whether it's true in lay life or in the monastic life too, that, you know, if that kind of, and I guess I'm speaking maybe a little bit more from the monastic life, because we have pretty clear, you know, guidelines about what we should and shouldn't engage in terms of livelihood. In other words, we're not out here to produce things to sell or, you know, as part of a livelihood. So watching what's the motivation, you know, and if putting something out there or being creative or being expressive is something that's a result of Dhamma practice or insight and expression, and it's useful for others, like it's in some form of service, or like writing an essay or a reflection or giving a talk, which you get called on to do at times. If it's an expression of practice, then that seems like that kind of creativity or contribution or production is useful. It's good, it's wholesome, and it's good for oneself, and it's good for other people. If it's all tinged with some sort of gain, personal gain or recognition, reputation, I want to be seen, for this, or I want to be known for this, even, that can be very subtle. Or it comes out of restlessness, or, some sort of boredom, got to do something because I don't want to be here with myself or with my mind or with my defilements. Those kinds of motivations. And again, it can be really hard to discern, and sometimes they're mixed. Sometimes there's mixed motivations. All of those, including wholesome and unwholesome motivations, can kind of play in with each other. You can genuinely be offering something that is coming from the heart and from your own insight, and at the same time doing it from restless or wanting some recognition or whatever, that can kind of fix in there. So just to be aware of that mixture of motivation and steer towards the wholesome.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the case that all creating is wholesome, but that wholesome desire will tend towards creating in terms of creating benefit. It's the distinction between like a tanha being just trying to get something, and that might even be to the exclusion of, or even if it causes others to lose out in some way, it's more like that intensely self-focused. It's the chanda is like the desire for good, the desire to create some sort of benefit for myself and for others. Like you see this phrase in the suttas that comes up over and again. He works not for his own affliction and not for the affliction of others. So and then there's overlap with those two. So if you're truly working for your own benefit, then that will create some sort of benefit for others as well, in terms of radiating out. It's not Prabhupada is not referring to just creating physical things, but in terms of producing or creating benefit for oneself and for society through wholesome desires, wholesome intentions.
One kind of thing that comes to mind is a few years ago, Ajahn Naniko is a well-known Thai forest monk, and he's very creative. He's a very expert sculptor, and his monastery is just full of these massive creations that are quite beautiful, quite skilled, and that he spends quite a fair amount of time creating. And this was in the West at a gathering a bit back, that a monk, asked him the question. A monk who is into, doing certain kinds of creative things, was asking Ajahn Naniko about how Ajahn Naniko, used this as part of his practice, as, his creativity, as developing his practice, as kind of like part of the path. And even with that, Ajahn Naniko said, no, this is not part of my path, It's like the path I practice is the teachings of the Buddha and of Ajahn Chah in our tradition. It's, it's like, I practice mindfulness, I do my, walking meditation, I do my sitting meditation, I do my, breathing, and whatever it is that, is part of the traditional teachings. And he says, and this other part that you see, these expressions, these sculptures, all that kind of stuff, these are, things that I do because I enjoy them, I'm interested in them, and, they, produce something that's kind of nice. But this is not like part of my path of practice. So I just was, really, glad to hear that somebody so renowned as him, expressed that. It's sort of like, this is not a substitute, or this is not another channel or means to the goal. This is an expression of, it's a creative expression of what he had understood and realized through his practice.
And they're very beautiful too. These are like stone Buddha images, some of them quite large and very, very detailed. And he doesn't sleep very much, so he works on them at night.
His monastery was also a dump. He brought it. Well, he brought trash.
You need to explain that.
Yeah. When he first got his monastery, he filled it with trash. He had to bring in trash to it because there were no trees or anything.
But not just trash, literally.
Compost.
Actually,
So he beautified it a little bit before the trees grew too. I suspect there was some of that in there.
That was the mud that fed the lotuses.
Yes, I was talking with a couple different monks. There's a Thai monk and a Malaysian monk, and I was talking with this Thai monk, and the Thai monk was like, yeah, we think of it as like Jurassic Park. It's like there's these kind of rock formations everywhere, and then the Malaysian monk was like, that's not what I thought. When I saw it, I thought, Fred Flintstone. It's like you walk through all these like huge rock archways, and every monk, even within the discipline and the Vinaya, every monk has their own completely unique expression.
Ajahn Jeff did say that in the Q&A we had with him, that he recommended that most monks have like some project they could pick up and put down, but something that you could really just put down like right away and that you didn't spend too much time on. He's like, yeah, it's quite helpful. So I found that distinction between that, the path, and whatever that is being, that's a helpful distinction. I also, I also appreciated the acknowledgement that like it has a role in the holy life.
I also appreciate the distinction. And I think for myself, I definitely have seen this in myself, and I think it's really, really rampant in today's world, especially with it's so easy to make an album or make a movie or make a video, make anything, whereas when I was a kid, it was really a lot harder, to find someone with a video camera or someone's got a 4-track recorder, but now, and it seems like there's so many more outlets to put up this stuff that one makes, and so just the pain, I think, of for those people that feel compelled to have to create something and have to put it up, and they get caught in the loop of, saying to people and then having to show people, and then get sort of like, you're a good person, you're creative, you're talented, and I definitely made stuff, as a lay person, and when I ordained the first time, it was just such a relief to not have to anymore. Just to not have to write songs and play them for people or do whatever, and somehow get that feedback back that you have value or whatever it is that one's trying to get. So just to speak from that place, that just how nice, and obviously that one still does these things in daily life. Like the kilesas find a way, but just just the relief of not having to create something.
For that gain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With that gain mind. And then on the other side of that, I remember reading interesting thing Ajahn Amaro said, because he's obviously somebody who has who's quite creative, quite productive, quite talented, and has a lot to offer, just manifests all sorts of stuff. And he said something very interesting about seeing this quality in himself, and yet also at one point recognizing that like it wasn't the right time yet to sort of give voice to that, to sort of just let it be for a while. I mean, that being said, he seemed to put out books and give talks pretty early, so I don't know when that was. But that resonated too. I think if somebody sees either these abilities in oneself or these desires or whatever it is, that, okay, but it might not be the right time. That aspect, that I thought there was something there too.
And I think the motivation part is really what's so important. Because he, like somebody like Lumpur Pasano, and all the work he did with, helping the villagers to set up right livelihood, and the work he did with saving the forests, and all those kinds of things that could be considered expressions in some creative way. Yet they were kind of, best I could tell anybody, they were, naturally held expressions of his just wish to be offering something, to be putting something out there as a creative expression, as an expression of service, and as an expression of his, faith in the practice as well. So he wasn't doing it for recognition or for gain or to, for the villagers to like him and support the monastery or things like that. So, different ways that we each individually can contribute, I think it's great to act on that because it does create a wholesome state of mind, the pamoja aspect of it, as long as it's that kind of natural response and not something coming from that motivation of seeking something in return, gain or praise.
And I think also both in terms of what you're saying and in terms of like even the dhutangas, I think inevitably we have to do these things and we have to see them. You know what I mean? Take on a dhutanga practice and then seeing oneself, either A, it's helping, or B, it's not helping, and it's inevitable, you know what I mean? Take on a creative act, and then see all this unskillful stuff arise, and learn from it. As opposed to just only always trying to do stuff,